Hello, everybody. This is the Woke Centrist coming at you live, doing a little bit of a quick review here, slash, I don't know, just kind of quick review of a book that I've read recently. Well, just to give a little bit of background information, I like to go and look for new fantasy material for me to read. Oftentimes, I'll go to the R Fantasy subreddit on Reddit, and yearly they post like the top fantasy lists for that year. And I've been taking a look at the 2021 list. And usually when I go through these lists, I start at the absolute bottom. And how do I pick these really? Most of my reading is actually listening. So, what I try to do is find the audiobooks of these particular books to see if they're in my library or not. For these bottom books, I don't go so far as to purchase Audible credits for these. If I can't find them, sometimes I will get ebooks as well. But usually it takes me quite a longer time to get through an ebook than a audiobook. It's just audiobooks are just so convenient. Well, anyway, Deerskin. This book is by Robin McKinley. This was rated number 204 on that list for our fantasy. There's quite a lot of titles that are actually tied for 204. If I'm not mistaken, it's like over 20 titles. So maybe in the possible near future, you may see many of reviews for 204 ranked novels here. So let's go ahead and into it. First, I'm going to try to discuss this without too many spoilers, and then we'll go ahead and jump into a spoiler review. First, Deerskin. I did a little bit of research, and it looks like this book is actually a retelling of a French fairy tale by Charles Perrault, or maybe it's Perrault, those French pronunciations. Well, anyway, the book is titled Donkey Skin, and this is considered a darker reimagination of that fairy tale. One thing that happened is this book definitely took me off guard a bit. The author, Robin McKinley, I had read another book on the R Fantasy list, um, which was the Damar series. I only read the first book in that series. To be honest, I didn't like it. So I could only get as far as the first book. First book is Blue Sword. Anyway, it's kind of your typical YA fantasy fare, nothing too much. I'll say about Deerskin, it is definitely not that. It's definitely more adult focused. So right away, uh, some things that happened just totally threw me off because I was really expecting more of the same, like some more YA fantasy standard fare. That's not actually what you get here. So, without going into too much detail, the main character is a princess, and she has a mother and father who are quite vain. The mother is dying and makes the last request to have her painting, to freeze her beauty in history and time. So, upon the finishing of this painting, she gazes upon it, passes away, and tells her husband at that time that if you ever marry again, she has to be more beautiful than I. Things happen. Um, I don't want to get too much into detail. This does happen quite in the beginning of the book. But the main character is the princess. And there are some events that are quite traumatic for this princess, and she is left for dead, and she kind of goes into a self-exile, and upon the end of that self-exile, she ends up in another kingdom, and she kind of presents herself as this wild woman, lover of dogs, and etc. In the end, she confronts her tormentor that caused her trauma in a very extravagant way. I will say, like, the middle of the book has a really meandering plot. Most of the middle of the book is her coming to terms with memory loss that was triggered by the traumatic event that happened in the beginning of the book, and her slowly getting her memories back until she fully confronts her, um, I guess, the person who had inflicted this trauma on her. And there's also a little bit of a love story thrown in there as well. So, all in all, this book, I would have given it 3 out of 5. It's pretty standard fantasy. You do see some fantastical creatures being fought. That's about as fantasy as it gets. And there's just a little bit of magic in here. You know, you got kings and queens, you know, your standard fantasy stuff. The prose in this is pretty good. I just felt that, man, does this plot meander throughout the beginning. Like the most significant and memorable things happening at the beginning and at the end of this book. A lot of the middle is pretty forgettable, to be honest. But now, starting from here on, we're going to get deep into spoilers territory. So you hear that? If you don't want to have this book spoiled, you know, you can end it here and perhaps read the book and come back to this discussion slash review and see if you agree with me or not. So, spoilers. Going back to the beginning of the book, I mentioned that the character undergoes a traumatic experience. Um, so this is very, very far from this author's YA roots. The main character, what happens is the only person that's beautiful enough in this kingdom for this king to marry is his own daughter. So, of course, the daughter is not a willing participant in this plan to marry her father. So what ends up is he ends up raping his daughter. So we got some incest rape here. And she has a miscarriage of her, rape child. That doesn't go into extreme detail, but it is pretty damn jarring when it does happen. Um, so she's left for dead. She flees. Her dog is also um, her companion for throughout most of the book because she gets exiled. She goes and she travels. She meets, some hermits out in the woods. Finally, she gets over to another kingdom and she works the kennels because she just loves dogs. So she works for this other prince. She works in his kennels and raises his dogs. They form like a budding relationship that ends in a romance. But man, the end of this book is beyond crazy. So hear me out here. I have not read anything like this, but at the end of the book, things come to a head. Her father shows up in this kingdom to marry somebody from this fiefdom here. And she finds out that he is there and she goes to confront them. So, upon confronting this king, we see her imbued with many different magical powers. One of the first things that happens is that she basically shoots like a giant fucking geyser of period blood out of her snatch. And this magical period blood starts forming symbols and patterns on the floor of this chapel where the father was going to marry like some princess of this kingdom. Yes, you heard me right. Period blood, magical period blood. Um, and I don't know the purpose of this. Ultimately, the author just tries to allude as like, oh, this marks this place as like an area of significance where people would visit long after these events have passed to look at this magical period blood on the floor and try to discern the symbols and patterns. Uh, it's pretty ridiculous. After that, she turns basically into the Human Torch, um, except she doesn't have any flying powers, but she basically gets turned into some type of burning woman. And the after this event in the book, the end gets very blurry for me. The king doesn't get killed or anything. What happens is the prince, despite her turning into this flame demon, like flame demon, vagina, blood vomiting thing, and he goes to console her and kind of snap her out of it. She runs off and tries to go, after her. So it ends kind of ridiculously, she thinks she's not good enough for him because she has all this like really fucked up baggage and you know, that makes sense. But for now, at the end, they kiss or something. Okay, the middle of this book, if I want to spoil it, it's just a bunch of meandering around in the wilderness, dealing with her dog and hunting beasts and survival. Her meeting some witch woman, but yeah, it's. I would say the beginning and ending of this book are kind of worth getting through the middle. Of course, this book isn't super long. I don't think it's a big ask, but the beginning and endings of this book is just like I'm not gonna say it's good because some of the stuff in there is horrific, but it is unique. You know, uh, the magical period blood. Come on, wouldn't you want to read about magical period blood? You got to check it out. You just got to check it out. But anyway, this is by Robin McKinley, Deerskin. And I will be covering other books on this Reddit list. There's one that I just finished recently from the series The Ranger's Apprentice. I actually like that one, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that soon. But if you have any comments about this book, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. I'm always willing to talk to you guys in the comments if you have any comments. But yeah, check us out. And next time, I'm going to go ahead and cover a couple other books. One of them is going to be The Ranger's Apprentice, The Ruins of Gorlan. I believe that's what it's called. And a few others as well. And I'll keep you posted. And I'm also going to post up some old discussions we had about the new series for Rings of Power, as well as some simulcasts that I've done with Andrew for House of the Dragon. But all right, thank you guys for listening. Please share, and you have a great night. Bye bye.